Good morning. My name is Erasmus Aduteye, and I'm a graduate student from the University of Maryland, Eastern Shore. And this morning I'll be talking on the influence of biochar on growth, yield, and root microbiome of day neutral strawberries, a 16S RNA gene sequencing approach. And I'm working on this project. It's my graduate project or my research, and I'm working on this project with Dr. Navin Kumar-Dixit and another advisor, Dr. Caleb Nindo. He's not here today. We all know strawberries, and I believe we are all familiar with strawberries. And most of us have seen strawberries grown before, and most of us here too are farmers. Even though if we've not grown strawberries, we have seen it in different farms, and we know the importance of this crop to the country, USA, and globally too, especially in Mexico and other countries. And the market is growing in recent years because most people are trying to eat sustainable organic food, and the strawberry market as well is growing. And those of us who live in this part of the US, we normally get our produce from California or Florida. The Eastern Shore or Marion Station around the Mava area used to be one of the best strawberry growing areas. But when the chicken industry set in, and because of the work labor intensive, most people try to do away or do other things, and the strawberry cultivation is declining in this part of our region. And as of 2022, the market is valued to around 19 billion US dollars and is projected to reach around 34 billion by the year 2032. As I said earlier, the regions that grow the strawberries in the US is California, which account for 91% of the total strawberry that is grown in the US, and followed by Florida, which is 10%. However, most farmers or people who are into this strawberry or this crop, they face some challenges from pests, other diseases, and the soil health is another thing that we need to consider as we move forward. Why is soil health important for strawberry growers or farmers? If you prioritize the soil health, it can give you higher yield, and also your fruits, you're going to have improved quality in terms of your harvest and long-term sustainability. And one may ask, how do we improve our soil health? Recently, biochar has been used or has been proposed as one of the tool or one thing that we can use to maintain or improve our soil health. And one may ask, what is biochar? Biochar is just like a charcoal that we can use or we can incorporate into the soil to grow our crops. And this is produced under high temperature without the presence of oxygen, and it comes out as a fine charcoal. You can cut, if you grow your crops, let's say corn or soybean, the residue that is left, you can cut it when you burn it under high temperature. Normally, farmers in developing countries, they make their own biochar, but in developed countries, most of them, they buy from the companies that make the biochar. And these amendments have been studied by other researchers, and Lang and Tai in 2021 reported that biochar strategy has improved their crop yield because it had positive impact on the soil microbial community. And another study, this one was done in 2021 in Chile, in a maize farm. And they also reported that the first year of biochar application did not have any positive impact on yield. However, the subsequent years had impact after year 2 and 3. That is when they had impact after they apply the biochar. So the investigation or research that most people do around biochar is on the yield, how to improve yield in the soil. However, the amount of biochar that we need to use in the soil to grow our crops or to do the amendment is still under investigation. So most people say 5, 10, 15, so it's still under investigation, and in open field is a big issue now, and there's a research ongoing in Florida, Texas, Prairie View A&M University, and they are trying to quantify the amount of biochar that we can use in the soil. So the range that they are calculating now is, they say, 2.5 tons to 5 tons per hectare, but it's a research that is still ongoing. So my study focused on how to investigate the effect of biochar soil amendment on the growth and yield of strawberry plants, and also to assess the microbial diversity changes using 16S RNA sequencing approach. So I used 2-day neutral strawberries, which is Seascape and Monterey, to do this study, and they were grown in a greenhouse at UMES, and I used 3 treatments: control, that no biochar, 5% biochar, and 10% biochar. However, but before I settled on 5 and 10, I tried to do it 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. And I realized that after 10%, from 20 going, is having negative impact on the plants. The plants do not grow well due to water retention, and you see the edges of the leaves, they started burning. So I decided to do away with the 5, anything after 15. Then I settled on 10 and 5 for the research. So each treatment had 4 plants with 5 replicates. And the irrigation and fertigation was done. I used the tensiometer. I put it in each pot, and based on the soil moisture, when it reaches 30 centibars, then I apply the water. Normally, with this kind of research, it's in a greenhouse, we're supposed to have a system where each pipe is connected to each pot so that we can automatically water it, but because of budget constraint and time, I have to do it manually. So when I have to apply the water, I have a measurement. I do 30 ml of water, and I apply it to each pot. And there are 60 pots, so it's a bit easier to do that. But in a large scale, you cannot do that. And NPK 2020 was applied 2 weeks after planting, and it was repeated every 14 days. And the runners were also removed weekly based on scouting. Not all the strawberry plants produce runners at the same time. So every week you have to scout, and the ones that produce runners, you cut it and I count. So I collected data every 30 days on the number of leaves, the runners, the flowers, and the chlorophyll content using the SPAD meter, soil analysis plant development. And with the 16 sRNA sequencing, the roots were collected after 180 days, and they were prepared for the sequencing. The 500 milligram, about 500 was collected, the roots, and put in 15 ml centrifuge tubes, and it was sealed with paraffin and packed in the dry ice, and after sealed with paraffin, I put them in 50 ml centrifuge to protect the tube for shipping, because we don't have the means to do this sequencing, so we need to ship it to LC Sciences in Texas to do this part of the analysis. So they recommended that we have to ship it overnight. So we took it to FedEx, and we maintained a cold chain, the temperature between -20 to 80, so that they receive it on time. If you delay, then your samples are going to not work well, then you need to do another one. And the results was done on the alpha diversity, beta diversity, and taxonomic community. The alpha diversity refers to the diversity in each ecosystem, measuring the abundance of the species. And the beta diversity also shows the difference among the habitats. So we focus on the PCA and the PCOA or PQA, which is the principal component analysis. It measures it's a technique that is used to reduce the dimensionality of the high data. And the PCQA or PCOA, it helps you to visualize the data to see the differences. And based on the taxonomic community too, we classify them according to the genus, species, and the phylum level. And the 30 top taxa that was identified, they were used to do the bar charts, and heat maps were also done. And the analysis was done using the vegan R package. And I also use Excel to do some of the plots. So,
I may have missed it. What was the soil medium that you added the biochar to?
Oh, it's just a normal topsoil.
I'm sorry, say again?
Topsoil. Normal topsoil.
Field soil.
Yes, topsoil. And how I did it is I weighed the topsoil, and it was done in the 1.7 gallon pots. So based on the weight of the topsoil, I calculated 5% of the weight of the soil, and I mixed to the biochar, and I did the same thing to the 10%. So after 30 days, 60 days, I took the number of leaves based on 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days after transplanting. I will use the bare root strawberries. So after 30 days, 30 days in Monterey and Seascape, the Monterey, there's no difference in terms of leaves. There is no difference. 60 days, there is a difference between 5% and 10% and 5% and 1%. But statistically, it shows that there's a difference. But if you count the number of leaves, there is no much difference between the number of leaves. Same as 60 days too, there's no difference statistically between the number of leaves after 60 days of transplanting. And in Seascape too, there is no difference. However, in Monterey, after 90 days of transplanting, there is a difference between 5%, 10%, and no control, no biochar control, and 5% had the highest number of leaves in terms of treatment. Moving on to the height after transplanting, in Monterey, there is no difference in terms of height after 30 days. I measure the height in centimeters. I use a ruler or a rule. And in Seascape too, there is no difference in terms of plant height after transplanting. And in 60 days, after 90 days, before 90 days, is that the height is almost, it doesn't keep growing. It's like it remains almost the same. So I didn't measure the height in the 90 days. So after 60 days of transplanting, there is a difference between, statistically there's a difference between control and 10%, but there is no difference between 5% and 10%, and the same in Seascape after 60 days of transplanting. When I counted the number of runners after transplanting, there is no much difference in terms of Monterey and Seascape in no biochar. There is no difference statistically after the number of runners. In 5% too, there is no difference in terms of number of runners after transplanting in both varieties. But in 10%, Monterey produced more number of runners compared to Seascape when I applied the biochar. And moving on to the SPAT reading, the chlorophyll content. If you look at the 60 days after transplanting, there is a difference among all the treatments, which 10% biochar had higher SPAT content in Monterey, same as Seascape. the 10% had the highest spot reading after 60 days. And 90 days, there is no difference between 5 and 10, but there is a difference between the treatments and the control. And if you look at Seascape, there is no difference between the treatments. And the SPAD reading after 90 days is within the range. A good SPAD reading is supposed to be between 30 to somewhere 50 SPAD units for the strawberry plant. And by 90 days, is ranging between 30 to 50. So the SPAD reading for the treatment is within the range. And based on the number of flowers and control, Monterey produced more flowers compared to Seascape, the number of flowers that I counted, and in 5% to Monterey produced more flowers than Seascape if you look at it in terms of numbers, but statistically there is no difference among the number of flowers. And same as in 10%, if you count Monterey had more number of flowers, but if you look at the statistics, it shows that there is no difference between the number of flowers after 60 days for the season. And looking at the yield, in greenhouse, this kind of study, in a greenhouse, you're supposed to get a yield between 2.5 to 3 pounds per plant. But looking at the results that I had, depending on the climate and everything, in control, which is no biochar, but Monterey is averaging close to 0.8 kilogram per plant, and Seascape is around 0.6 per plant, and in 5%, Monterey is 8 per plant, and Seascape is around 0.6, and the same in 10% biochar. So if you go to open field, this is ranging around 1.65 pounds per plant. In open field, it's a good yield. But if you invest in greenhouse, looking at the yield is on the low side, because in the greenhouse, you're supposed to have an average 2.5, minimum 2, or 2.5 going, and a high yield plant in a greenhouse gives you up to 3 pounds per plant. So in terms of yield, although Monterey had better yield, but it's on the low side, and the Seascape too is on the low side. And on the sequencing, if you look at the results from the alpha diversity, there is a core microbe, which is 1,202 ASV, is maintained among the treatment, which shows that there's no change. There's no change here. But if you look at them individually, this is the control, this is 5, and this is 10. The control had more ASVs compared to the 5 and the 10%. This is because biochar may have acted or caused a change in the soil moisture retention and the nutrient availability, which caused a change in the ASVs. And if you look at this is also the alpha diversity, the CAL1 plot. It shows you that there is no difference among the treatment in terms of the microbial species present. However, if you look at the control, there is a wider spread compared to the 5% and 10%, but if you look at the median, they are all almost the same. So it tells you that there is no difference in terms of the microbial species present in the alpha diversity. And in terms of the good coverage, which is a good coverage species is supposed to be close to 1, And in terms of the treatment too, is close to 1, but however, the medians are close to each other, and it shows you that biochar treatment did not alter the microbial community of the strawberry roots. It's same as the Shannon and the Simpson. This is the Shannon plot, and this is the Simpson plot. It also shows you that there is no difference in the treatments that were done based on 5 and 10%. And the principal component analysis that were done, the one accounts for 98% of the variability or total variance, and this one accounts for 1.3%. And if you look at the clusters or if you look here, you see that these ones are to each other. They are clustered to each other, or densely clustered towards the center, with a wide spread between, or a spread between the control. But if you look at it, because there's a slight overlap, it shows you that there is no difference in the microbial community of the treatment. But if you look at the principal component, the PCO, it shows that there is a slight overlap for the 10% and the 5%. There's just a slight overlap compared to the control. However, statistically, there is no much difference. However, you can see that biochar altered a bit of the microbial community in 5 and 10, but it didn't affect it that much. And if you look at the species at the taxonomy level, there is a difference in 5% and 10% in terms of the chloroplasts and some the streptomyces. There's a bit of difference, and biochar also altered the cyanobacteria and the proteobacteria abundant in all the treatment. And we know that cyanobacteria, it helps in nitrogen fixation, and proteobacteria also helps in nutrient cycling. And you see that there is a bit of difference in this streptomyces. However, the difference in the control is larger if you compare it to the difference in the 5% and 10% biochar treatment. And the reason why biochar did not alter the microbial community that much in this study is that because this is the first year of the study, biochar might not be able to alter the community structure or change the pH that much in the soil. Because for you to change the pH of the soil or anything, it takes time. And most studies, or the studies that were also done previously, shows that biochar that was applied to the soil change the microbial community or change the community structure of the soil. However, you need more years of study, because once biochar is applied to your soil, it's hard, or you cannot take it out from the soil. So for the decision to apply biochar to a soil as a soil amendment depends on the farmer or the one who is going to apply it, because once you do that, it stays in the soil forever. And for it to change your community structure, it takes time. And the first year, there is no much change, but after 2-3 years, that is when you begin to see a bit of change. In terms of the generous level, to the same thing, it did not change much of the community structure, and the variations at the generous level is very low. So it didn't change much of the community structure at the generous level. And the species level, there is a slight shift in the species level of the, in terms of the control, and 5% and 10%, the streptomyces change in control is a bit higher compared to 5% and 10%. However, the study on the parameters measured for the biochar in terms of the height, leaves, and other things shows that biochar treatment varies based on the parameter that is measured. And Monterey benefited more from the 5% biochar after 90 days compared to seascape. So that means that biochar at up to 5% it will be okay. Anything more than 5% that you increase up to 10%, you might be wasting it or you are losing money. In terms of runout production too, Monterey had better runout production at 5% compared to seascape. So if you focus more on runner, if you grow strawberries based on runner, you need more runners. That means 5% biochar treatment might be able to help you in terms of runner production. You focus more 5%. However, the chlorophyll content was much higher in the 10% biochar, increased the chlorophyll content in the plant. And flower production, Monterey also had a better response to biochar in terms of flower production. Regarding yield, making it up to 10% also means you apply excess biochar based on this study. However, at 5% biochar, Monterey had a better response to yield compared to seascape and the 10% biochar. In terms of the seasonal sequencing or the taxonomic treatment, there is a core microbe that is around 1,200 that is maintained across all the treatments. So that means biochar, although it altered the community composition to some extent, there is a core microbe that did not change. Or among this treatment, there is a core microbe that was maintained among all the treatments. Alpha diversity study for the first year shows that there is no difference between either you apply biochar or no biochar. So there was no difference. Although the beta diversity also shows a slight shift, biochar did not create much difference because there was a uniform microbial community in all the treatments that was also studied, so it didn't create that much difference. The dominant phyla, such as cyanobacteria, protobacteria, remain consistent across all the treatments, and these bacteria also helps in, like I said earlier, cyanobacteria helps in nitrogen fixation. The protobacteria also helps in nutrient cycling, and there is also actinobacteria, which also helps in organic matter decomposition. That was also observed in the study. However, biochar that is applied to the soil, we need more study on it because this is just a first year of study. So we need more study for the second year and third year before we can be able to conclude that biochar can be or alter the community composition of the strawberry root. And depending on the parameters measured, that is the yield, the leaf content, and number of leaves, and the flowers too, we need more years of study because what works in one region cannot work in the other region because the temperature, I had a problem with the greenhouse at some point in time. The temperature was around 68 to somewhere 72 Fahrenheit, but there was a time in the summer where we had a problem with the greenhouse and the temperature was extremely high and it's not automated. Some you need to turn it for the size to open. So the temperature was too warm and some of the flowers, they dropped. So those ones were not accounted for. So in terms of this study, there had been some challenges too based on what we studied. And these are some of the references I used for the study and my acknowledgements. All right, questions and answers.
you using the same plants in the pots for your next year's study in the greenhouse?
I did one in the high tunnel. The greenhouse one, the next year we have to plant a new strawberries, new berries, but we use the same pots because we already put the biochar, so we use the same pots so we look at the microbial community. However, the one in the high tunnel that we did, we didn't approach the strawberries, but I didn't include the results here. But if you look at the one in the high tunnel, I was expecting a much or a better yield in the second season because it's the same plant. But the second season, the yield declined compared to the first season. You're welcome. Any questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
It's very